In this week's drive, we take a team-by-team look at the first Grand Prix of the year. Watch Michael Schumacher kicking still more goals. Find out what women really want. And take lifestyle motoring to its illogical conclusion. All this and more in this week's Drive. We start with a review of the first Grand Prix.
I think, it's a great place to go. It's a bit far. It's like down there somewhere. It's miles away. The trip is really long, but it's a lot of fun. The atmosphere is great. The racetrack is a lot of fun. The city itself, Melbourne, I really like it. It's good.
It's a non-permanent track and it changes a lot for the weekend, including in terms of grip. Some of the corners are very interesting, like the one after the start-finish line, which you enter really quickly, but then closes up and opens out again. Plus the chicanes, where you can easily get your braking wrong and lose time. And of course, it's also a real flyer.
He's referring to the race in 2002 when Ralph became airborne after colliding with Rubens Barrichello in the first corner. Let's do a virtual lap of Albert Park. Ideally, the drivers should have slowed to about 130 kilometers an hour going into the Jones chicane. Then they power through to fourth gear for Brabham and accelerate again until the right-hander at Sports Centre, where they slow down from 290 to about 90, the most severe braking of the whole lap. After the Hellers corner, it's right into the fast Whitefoot corner and up to fifth gear, coming out carrying as much speed as possible for the run onto Albert Road. The drivers reach this right-hander at about 290 and have to brake hard again before getting back on the power just as soon and as smoothly as they can. This is the fastest section of the whole 5-kilometer track, which is normally a public road around a scenic lake. The cars carry very little wing for low drag and soft suspensions to allow them to drive over the low curbs. Another short straight leads to the Stewart corner, a fourth gear 220 km/h corner, and then into Senna, the slowest part of the circuit where it is difficult to pass. Pit lane entry is on the right of the track. Frost corner, then onto the start-finish straight. A 5-kilometer lap here in a Formula One car will be done in less than a minute and a half. It's not a new season if there aren't some new rules and regulations as organisers try to make the racing closer and more exciting. Affected this year are the rear wing, the electronics, the pit lane speed, and the engine. The engine now has to last the whole weekend, so reliability is critical in the high-revving, high-stress motors. The BMW engine used by Williams is said to make 950 horsepower and spins at up to 19,000 RPM.
We allowed ourselves a very thorough design stage, in which we checked to see if we could continue to develop the existing design, or if we had to move away completely to a more robust, heavier engine. The result was that we were able to build on the P83. Since then, we've already done a fair few kilometers, both on our test stands and out on the track. We're very confident that we've got the right solution for the 2004 season.
Changing an engine after practice or qualifying will cost places on the grid, or mean starting at the back.
One engine per weekend, it means that, from Friday to Sunday, you basically gotta have one engine. If you have a problem, then the penalty be 10 places. If you manage to qualify on pole, and the engine blows before the race, you'll start 10th.
This rule could be the make or break this season. Engineers will have to give drivers the same performance, but with much better durability. So they've spent the off-season redesigning, testing and analysing, reworking, refining and fine-tuning. The suggested ban on two-way telemetry, sending data to and from the car while it's out on the track, hasn't been imposed after all. Instead, other aspects of the electronics have been put on the banned list. These changes are intended to give the drivers more control during the race and more opportunities to make mistakes.
The only difference for next year is that we have to carry the FIA data logger, which basically logs, which every team has to carry to log their electronic systems to make sure they're not using traction control during the start of the, launch control during the start, and manual upshift. So traction control is fine, it's just making sure they're not having a fully automatic upshift, making sure they're not using launch control at the start.
So the start will be even more critical. It's up to the drivers themselves to find exactly the right moment to unleash all those horses.
Starts will be a bit different, that's for sure. You'll be able to do a perfect start, but not 17 times one after the other. Changing up is no problem. That's very easy. Not a lot will change. But the field at the start is naturally going to get more mixed up.
Another effect of the new rules. Rear wings are only allowed to have 2 blades and must have bigger end plates. Another change for this year involves the speed in pit lane, which has been increased from 80 to 100 kilometers an hour. This will save vital seconds on every pit stop, and in some events may make an extra stop a possibility. Track designers in Melbourne reacted quickly.
The biggest change we've made actually is right here behind me in respect to the entrance to the pit lane. Since 1996, our pit lane has had a big chicane in it which has slowed the cars in very early, but this year the pit lane's been straightened, so the cars will be flying straight up to the pits for a much quicker pit stops.
All these changes should make the racing closer and more exciting, and importantly, cheaper for the smaller teams too. The opening race has already been run and won, but here are some interesting facts about the first event of the 2004 season. The race is over 58 laps, so the drivers will cover 307.5 kilometres. Albert Park is rated as a fast circuit, hence the low wing angles, and the cars are driven at maximum throttle for 61% of each lap. Top speeds on the start-finish straight will be around 300 kilometres an hour. The mixture of high speeds and some slow corners makes this track especially hard on brakes, which can cause problems, especially late in the race. The track surface doesn't offer a lot of grip, so with little downforce and fast corners, cars can understeer, spin or slide off the road. Last year, David Coulthard won the race at an average speed of 194.8 kilometres an hour. This year, the winning pace was over 219 kilometres an hour. Tyre wear is significant, and in a normal dry race, teams will change tyres at least twice. Last year, the winner, Coulthard, stopped twice. This year, Ferrari, Renault, Williams and BAR all stopped 3 times, while McLaren and Jaguar opted for 2. Michael Schumacher won in 2002, and last year Coulthard was on top. This year, Coulthard was 8th, and Michael won again. Because of the distance to Melbourne and the resulting jet lag, most teams arrived to the race early, and many drivers were busy with sponsors' engagements.
Please welcome Rubens Barrichello and Michael Schumacher.
I think we're going to have a good weekend. It will be tough competition, but I think we're very well prepared, and I don't know why, but I feel so hot to get into the car and race and just do the best we can, and I think that will be not too bad.
Vodafone, sponsors of the Ferrari team, decided to test the skills of the Formula One champion and his teammate in the head-to-head challenge across 3 types of ball sports. Michael is a keen soccer player and turns out for his local club side at home between races. He dismissed the idea that he had an easy championship.
I think I had a tough year last year. I don't mind for a little bit more straightforward year compared to last year. But even though it was straightforward to some degree in 2002, it still was tough at times. And I took a lot of enjoyment from that year as well. So for me, it's different to maybe the media, the people at the outside. I race for myself. I don't race for anyone else.
Basketball was more of a challenge, like he believes he'll face this year.
I believe it's going to be a tough competition, really, ending at the end with 4 options of teams who can be champion in the end.
Who?
Renault, BMW, Mercedes and ourselves.
How is your golf, Michael? Do you get to play?
No, I still have 6.
You have 66.
Rubens is also ready to win.
You need this. This is Ford.
Never been so confident as I am right now because of the testing, because of my physical status, because of my mental toughness. I think it's all right to give it a go, but you never know. I'm seriously thinking that I can start the season as I finish.
Rubens Barrichello and Michael Schumacher, ladies and
Eventually, the
gentlemen,
teammates had to move on to other appearances and commitments. Next, it was a press conference with Shell, where one lucky fan got the ride of a lifetime. He'll go back to school able to brag that he got a ride with the best racing driver in the world. Michael was asked if he expects Rubens to be a contender for the World Championship this year.
Yes, I do. He has improved a lot of his game over the years and he has become stronger and stronger. And I just hope he stops now.
The 35-year-old German has already won more championships and Grand Prix than any other driver in Formula One history. He'll be looking for the 7th driver's title of his career this season. Barrichello finished 4th last year and played an important part in helping Ferrari keep the constructors' title. The two Ferraris started this year as they ended the last one. Despite off-season indications that the opposition were closing the gap, the two red cars blasted to the top of the timesheets in practice and, barring a brief challenge from Montoya in the first qualifying session, stayed there, taking both front row positions in the second of the doubled-up back-to-back timed sessions. The two Ferraris duly ran the whole race in first and second place, and that was it for the rest of the afternoon. Ferrari looked as they had done on Friday practice, in a class of their own. Behind them, only Alonso's Renault looked like staying close, but even he soon dropped off the Scuderia's blistering pace. Rubens, now in his 5th year with Ferrari, won the last race of last season, but his hopes of winning 2 in a row were dashed. In practice, both Ferraris were over half a second faster than anyone else. Only Montoya and Jenson Button joined them under the 1-minute 25-second mark. In the closing laps of the race, Schumacher slowed to preserve his engine and cruised across the line to win. Rubens came home 13 seconds behind, a victim of fading brakes and a soft or long brake pedal in the last third of the race. As the red lights went out at the start of the race, both Renaults left the grid as if they were still using launch control. Fernando Alonso put 2 wheels onto the grass on the outside of the track and drove round the outside of Montoya. He couldn't match the Ferraris and finished a lonely 3rd, half a minute off the winning pace. His teammate Jarno Trulli placed 7th, 1 lap down. Just a few laps into the race, the two Williams drivers touched wheels as Montoya went to pass Ralph. Although neither car sustained any damage, Montoya wasn't amused. The pair could only manage 4th and 5th places, earning 9 points for the team and putting them 2nd in the Constructors' Championship. Williams had a constant problem with Montoya's right rear wheel, and each pit stop took an extra 2 seconds as mechanics struggled to get it on and off, which dropped him behind. Ferrari's dominant day has been attributed to their Bridgestone tyres, but the heat expected at the next race at Sepang in Malaysia will benefit Michelin-shod teams, of which Williams is one. One team which has made a quantum leap in its performance since last year is BAR Honda, Jenson Button matching Montoya's qualifying time. The Englishman reckons that his team's showing in Australia has put them ahead of McLaren. Button qualified 4th in Melbourne and finished 6th in the race. He's now aiming to depose Williams in Malaysia. Button's teammate Sato finished 9th, proving the Honda engine is reliable and the chassis can make the pace. In contrast, the lacklustre performance of the McLaren team prompted a crisis meeting at the headquarters in Britain just 2 days after the Australian Grand Prix. Last year's winner David Coulthard struggled into 8th place for a single point, while Kimi Raikkonen made it into the record books with the first engine failure of the new season when his water pressure failed. Being outpaced by Ferrari is one thing, being slower than perennial midfielders Sauber is quite another. Both Toyota drivers struggled for pace in Melbourne and finished the race outside the top 10, having been lapped twice. The results were bitterly disappointing for the team, who had hoped to find themselves in a point-scoring position. The team left Melbourne amid rumours that the TF104 had a serious design fault and that tests have shown that last year's car was actually faster than the new model. With Cristiano Di Matta and Olivier Panis 13th and 18th in qualifying and 12th and 13th in the race, setting lap times 2 seconds down on Ferrari and only fractionally better than Minardi, the lack of race pace has left the team stunned. Toyota is now intent on improving the new TF104, but with the next two events both being long-haul flyaway races, it makes the process more difficult. Technical director Mike Gascoigne has set the San Marino Grand Prix as the date by which Panis and Di Matta will have completely overhauled cars at their disposal. The team has several new parts for Malaysia, and the cars will be totally repackaged in time for Imola. They will work on getting the weight low in the existing car and are planning an even bigger update for Silverstone. It may be slightly cruel, but Minardi seem to be used to lagging behind the rest of the Formula One teams. The Dutch-based squad launched their car just 2 days before the official practice in Melbourne. The timing was deliberate. Australian-born team principal Paul Stoddart wanted to unveil the new Minardi Cosworth at Albert Park. The season is expected to be another battle for his financially struggling team, and new driver Zolt Baumgartner is under no illusion about the task ahead.
Yeah, I think will be a very tough year. At least also that I raced last year 2 races, but this will be completely different because we will be here as rookies. Also, I mean, circuit-wise, and everything will be quite new here. But I think throughout the season we can improve.
The Hungarian, who started 2 Grand Prix for Jordan last season, will have to pass on his limited knowledge of Formula One to his teammate Jean-Marie Abruni. Last season, the team finished bottom and without a point in the Constructors' Championship, but are hoping to benefit from the new rule changes. Stoddart has said he would be happy with 4 or 5 points this year, but in Melbourne, neither car made it to the finish. Michael Schumacher already has a huge psychological advantage in his quest for a 7th crown, and there's some comfort knowing that his nearest rival is his teammate. Or is there? Ferrari have a perfect score, and almost all the other teams are tripping themselves up, although both Renault and Williams also got both cars home in the points. The 74th Geneva International Motor Show, one of the world's biggest and the first of the year in Europe, opened its doors to reveal over 50 new and exciting models and design concepts from manufacturers and design houses around the world. Volvo thinks it has the cure for an industry dominated by middle-aged men, a concept car designed entirely by a team of women aimed at female motorists. The company unveiled the YCC, which stands for Your Concept Car, as an attempt to undo problems linked to more than a century of men designing cars, primarily for other men. With gull-wing doors, massive alloy wheels and a sweeping glass fastback roofline, the YCC Coupe looks more like a boy racer's toy than previous cars aimed at women, such as minivans. In the YCC, easy access to the interior was a top priority, and it's easily changeable with 8 seat pad options to choose from. But in promoting the car's design, Volvo may run the risk of perpetuating some stereotypes associated with women drivers. For example, the YCC boasts computerized assistance for parallel parking, along with several features aimed at getting shopping bags in and out of the car more easily.
We wanted both to have functional and sportiness image. So the exterior, which I designed, is supposed to reflect that you can have both worlds. Then the interior, we wanted to focus a lot on ergonomics and vision. So we want the person to sit really good, have a good overview of the car, and to be able to see the corners of the car. So we lowered the hood, we moved the window rearwards, so you can have a really open view. Also, this big door makes the B-pillar be moved rearwards, so you get a better vision over the shoulder as well.
The Rolls-Royce 100EX was one of the other highlights of the show. It's the first experimental car to be produced by Rolls-Royce since BMW became the custodian of the brand in 1998. Based on a lightweight aluminium space frame, this open-top 4-seat, 2-door drop head has been designed and produced to celebrate the 100-year anniversary of Rolls-Royce in May 2004. Experimental models have long been a feature of Rolls-Royce, particularly between 1919 and 1957, when a number of motor cars were given the EX name. Unlike a concept car, an experimental car functions more fully and was originally used by Rolls-Royce to test and evaluate new systems, components and features. While the design of the 100EX and the choice of its special construction materials resonate strongly with Rolls-Royce tradition, both its aesthetics and its technology place it squarely in the 21st century.
In terms of our investment in the engineering of the car, this is really a tour de force. Everything from its amazing body shell, this amazing engine you're going to see in a second. These are all the ideas that we have for the future. So we're starting to lay the foundations for the next century for Rolls-Royce, and we're very, very proud of it.
The 100EX is powered by a 9-litre V16 64-valve engine, which sounds like it may be two BMW V8s joined together. There are presently no plans to produce it as a series model. Jaguar's XK sports cars received a final refresh before a new generation arrives in dealers' showrooms in 2005. The latest changes to Jaguar's fastest-selling sports car follow on from last year's powertrain upgrades and an electronic enhancement in 2001. Fundamentally, the XK has had nose and rear section revision to give it a more contemporary feel, while there are also new side sills, wheels and trim. The XKR also gets a new mesh grille, supplemented by a low-profile intake in the front bumper. Inside, a driver-controlled automatic speed limiter is standard on all models. The range will include the XK8 4.2-litre V8 coupe and convertibles, and the supercharged 4.2-litre XKR coupe and convertible. For most people, cars are just transport, but not for this man who's devoted 22 years to creating wacky vehicles. Tickle Sudakar's latest creation is a suitcase-shaped car which, in a reversal of roles, carries people to their destination. The four-wheeled suitcase also has a folding seat, and Sudakar says it took him 3 months to design the car.
It took me 3 months to make this suitcase car. It has a 50cc engine and has a speed limit of 40 kilometers per hour and weighs 300 kilograms.
And that's not all. Sudakar's earlier creation, even more bizarre and definitely not for the faint-hearted, is this self-propelled toilet. While the suitcase car gives its driver a professional look, the toilet car, which he has named Potty, gives other road users a reason to smile. Both the cars cost Sudakar about $2,000. He dreams of selling his designs to the masses and also hopes to enter the Guinness Book of World Records with his innovative designs. So, whether you're taking a drive in the park, preparing to win again, or shopping for new wheels, so you stay on track and up to speed, make sure you catch next week's Drive.